The crystal halls of neutral station arenas glowed with soft blue light. Thousands of tiny lights hung from the ceiling like frozen stars. The station floated in empty space, far from any planet or sun. It belonged to no one. That was the point. It was a place where enemies could meet without fear. Ambassador Kethviran walked slowly through the main corridor. His four wings folded tight against his back. His silver eyes looked at everything and missed nothing. He had worked for 3 long years to make this day happen. 17 species would gather in the Great Hall. They would sign the Hegemony Accords. They would end centuries of small wars and border fights. Peace. Real peace. It was finally within reach. Kethviran belonged to the Illuminated Concord, a species known for diplomacy and patience. His people did not fight. They talked. They negotiated. They found common ground where others saw only conflict. This skill had made them valuable to the galaxy. It had also made Kethviran one of the most important diplomats alive. He entered the Great Hall and stopped to admire the view. The room was enormous. A long table made of white stone stretched from one end to the other. Chairs of different sizes and shapes surrounded it. Each chair was built for a different species. Some were tall and narrow. Others were wide and flat. A few were filled with special liquid or gas. Delegates were already arriving. Kethviran watched them take their places. The Valkyrie came first. They were gentle beings with soft blue skin and long fronds that grew from their heads like plants. These fronds moved with their emotions. Right now, the fronds stood tall and proud. Ambassador Velthani led her delegation with quiet grace. Her people were peaceful. They had no army, no weapons. They survived through trade and friendship. Next came the Crystalline. They were living crystals, their bodies made of sharp angles and glowing facets. They communicated through vibrations and light. Their representative floated to its place at the table, leaving tiny sparkles in the air behind it. The Morvith Union sent 3 delegates. They were small creatures with gray skin and large black eyes. They moved quickly and spoke in fast, clicking sounds. Their translators worked hard to keep up. More species arrived. The Pale Syndicate, the Thornwood Collective, the Deep Swimmers of Krath, each one different. Each one with their own history, their own conflicts, their own reasons to want peace. And then the doors opened for the Ithrak Dominion. Kethviran felt his wings twitch. He forced them to stay still. High Prelate Zorvan entered the hall like he owned it. He was massive. 9 feet tall. His body was covered in dark green scales that looked like armor. 4 yellow eyes sat in a face built for violence. His arms were thick with muscle. His hands ended in claws that could tear through metal. The Ithrak were conquerors. Everyone knew this. They had built their empire by taking what they wanted. They agreed to peace talks only because war had become expensive. But no one trusted them. No one liked them. Zorvan took his seat. The chair groaned under his weight. He looked around the table with obvious boredom. To him, these other species were weak. They were prey. They were beneath him. Kethviran took a deep breath. He could manage Zorvan. He had managed worse. The final delegation arrived an hour later. They were new to the galactic community. Their species had only achieved faster than light travel 50 years ago. They came from a small planet called Earth in a quiet corner of the galaxy. They called themselves humans. Kethviran had studied the files on humans very carefully. What he found had disturbed him. Earth was a Class 12 Deathworld. This was the most dangerous classification possible. The planet was covered in extreme environments. Deserts that could cook flesh. Frozen wastelands that could freeze blood. Oceans filled with predators. The very air carried diseases. The ground shook and split open. Mountains exploded with fire. And somehow, humans had survived all of it. They had not just survived. They had conquered their planet. They had killed or tamed everything that threatened them. The files described human biology in frightening detail. They were pursuit predators. Their ancestors had hunted by chasing prey until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They could run for hours without stopping. They healed from injuries that would kill other species. They could survive extreme temperatures, extreme pain, extreme stress. Their bodies produced natural drugs that increased their strength and speed when threatened. They were, by any reasonable definition, monsters, but they had been peaceful since making contact with the galaxy. They traded fairly. They honored agreements. They seemed friendly still. Catharin noticed how the other delegates reacted when the humans entered. The Valkyrie frowns flattened in fear. The Christarim representative moved behind a pillar. The Morvith delegates stopped their clicking and went very still. Even Zov's eyes narrowed with something that might have been caution. 3 humans walked into the great hall. The leader was a woman. She had dark skin and black hair pulled back from her face. She wore a simple military uniform with no decorations. Her movements were smooth and controlled. She looked around the room with calm brown eyes that missed nothing. She smiled when she introduced herself. "Commander Lydia Okonkwo," she said. "Terran Confederacy. We're honored to observe these historic proceedings." Several delegates shuddered. The smile showed her teeth. White, flat teeth that could bite through tough food. A predator's display. Catharin stepped forward quickly. "Welcome, Commander. Please, take your seats. You are here as observers, of course. You have no vote and no voice in the proceedings. But we hope you will learn much." "Of course," Lydia said. Her voice was pleasant, warm. "We're just here to watch and learn." She led her 2 companions to their chairs. They sat down quietly. They folded their hands. They waited. Catharin allowed himself to relax slightly. The humans were only observers. They had no power here. They could not interfere. He walked to the head of the table and spread his wings in a gesture of welcome. "Friends," he said, "thank you for coming. Today, we write a new chapter in galactic history. Today, we choose peace over war, understanding over conflict. Let us begin." The delegates settled into their seats. Translators hummed. Recording devices activated. The formal negotiations began. Catharin guided the discussion with practiced skill. He steered around disagreements. He found compromises. He kept everyone talking. Hour after hour, the work continued. And in their corner, the 3 humans sat in silence. They watched. They listened. They learned. Commander Lydia Okonkwo kept her pleasant smile in place. Her eyes moved from speaker to speaker. She noticed how Zorvan interrupted others. She noticed how the smaller species flinched when he spoke. She noticed the fear that hid behind polite words. She said nothing. She was only an observer. But her hands, resting quietly on the table, had curled slowly into fists. The second day of negotiations started badly. Ambassador Catharin arrived at the Great Hall to find tension already filling the air. The Valkyrie's delegation huddled in one corner. Their fronds lay flat against their heads. Ambassador Velthani spoke quietly with her advisors. Her movements were nervous and quick. Something had happened during the night. Catharin approached carefully. "Ambassador Velthani, is everything well?" The Valkyrie looked at him with large, worried eyes. "We received a message from the Ithrak delegation. They say our claim to the Amber Nebula is not acceptable. They say they will reject any treaty that includes it." Catharin felt his wings stiffen. The Amber Nebula was important to the Valkyrie. It contained rare minerals their technology needed. They had lived there peacefully for 200 years. The Ithrak had never shown interest in it before. "This is a negotiation tactic," Kethverin said softly. "Zorvan wants to see how far he can push. Stand firm. The other delegates will support you." But he was not sure this was true. The other delegates feared the Ithrek. They might stay silent to avoid trouble. The morning session began with small matters. Trade routes, communication protocols, minor border adjustments. Kethverin handled each issue carefully. He was waiting for Zorvan to make his move. He did not wait long. "Hi." Prelate Zorvan stood up during a discussion about resource sharing. His massive body blocked the light from 3 ceiling panels. His voice boomed through the hall. "Enough of these small matters," he said. "Let us discuss something important. The Amber Nebula." Ambassador Velthani rose slowly. Her fronds trembled. "The Volcari position on the Amber Nebula is clear. We have occupied it peacefully for 2 centuries. Our claim is legal under established galactic law." "Galactic law," Zorvan repeated. He made the words sound like a joke. "Laws made by weak species to protect themselves from strong ones. The laws exist to ensure fairness for all," Kethverin said quickly. "The Volcari claim is valid. This has been verified by independent review." Zorvan turned his 4 eyes toward the Concord ambassador. "And who conducted this review?" "Species who fear us. Species who want to limit our growth." He looked around the table with obvious contempt. "I see the truth of this gathering. You do not want peace. You want to cage the Dominion, to keep us small while you grow fat on resources that should be ours." "That is not true," Velthani said. Her voice shook, but she kept speaking. "We only want what is rightfully ours. The Amber Nebula has never belonged to the Dominion." Zorvan laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Never belonged to us. Everything belongs to the strong. This is the natural law. The only law that matters." He stepped closer to the table. Several delegates leaned away from him. "Let me speak clearly," Zorvan said. "The Volcari claim to the Amber Nebula is void. It has always been void. They are a prey species. They exist to serve the needs of predators. This treaty should acknowledge biological truths. The strong take, the weak give. That is how the universe works." Silence fell over the hall. Complete and terrible silence. Ambassador Velthani's fronds went completely flat. This was not a choice. It was an automatic response. Her species had evolved to show submission when faced with predators. For millions of years, this response had kept them alive. But here, in this hall, it looked like agreement. It looked like she accepted Zorvan's words. Kethverin tried to speak, but his throat had gone tight. He looked around the table desperately. Someone had to respond. Someone had to stand against this dot. No one moved. No one spoke. The Crystrum representative flickered with fearful light. The Morvith delegates looked at the floor. The pale syndicate ambassador studied his own hands as if they were very interesting. Zorvan smiled. His teeth were sharp and numerous. "You see? Even your allies cannot defend you. They know the truth. They are just too afraid to say it." Velthani tried to respond. "We are not. The Volcari are not." But her body would not cooperate. Her fronds stayed flat. Her voice came out as a whisper, and then a new voice spoke. "Excuse me." It was calm, pleasant, almost casual. Every head in the room turned toward the corner where the human delegation sat. Commander Lydia Okonkwo had raised her hand slightly, like a student in a classroom, like someone asking a polite question. "You're wrong," she said simply. Zorvan's 4 eyes locked onto her. "What did you say?" "I said you're wrong." Lydia's tone did not change. She might have been discussing the weather. "You made several factual errors, and I thought someone should point that out." Kethviren felt his heart beating fast. Commander, you are an observer. You do not have speaking rights in this. I know. Lydia nodded politely at him. I'm not speaking as a delegate. I'm just correcting mistakes. That's allowed, isn't it? When someone says something completely false. Zorvan took one step toward the human. The floor shook slightly under his weight. You dare to address me, Deathworlder? You dare to call me wrong? Well, you are wrong. Lydia leaned back in her chair. She looked comfortable, relaxed. You said the Valkyrie are a prey species, that they exist to serve predators. But prey species don't build starships, High Prelate. They don't develop philosophy. They don't create art or music or complex societies. She gestured toward Ambassador Velthani. Look at her. Really look. She came here representing millions of her people. She negotiated trade agreements that benefit dozens of worlds. She speaks 4 languages fluently. What exactly about that says prey to you? Zorvan's scales seemed to darken with anger. You do not understand our ways, human. You are new to this galaxy. You know nothing of the order that... I understand bullies, Lydia interrupted. Her voice remained calm, but something in her eyes had changed. They had become very steady, very focused. I understand how they work. They pick on anyone who seems weak. They use size and threats to get what they want. They call it natural order because that sounds better than, I take things because no one stops me. She stood up from her chair. The movement was slow and deliberate. But here's what bullies never understand, she continued. Strength isn't just about muscles and claws. It's about standing up when you're scared. It's about saying no when saying yes would be easier. The Valkyrie have survived for thousands of years without armies or weapons. That takes a different kind of strength. A kind you'll never have. Zorvan roared. The sound was deafening. Delegates covered their ears or fled their chairs. The Cristarim representative cracked 2 of its own limbs trying to get away. But Lydia did not move. She did not flinch. She stood perfectly still and watched the massive alien with those steady, focused eyes. Are you finished? She asked. The question was so unexpected that Zorvan actually stopped roaring. He stared at the small human woman who should have been terrified, who should have been running, who should have been submitting like all the other prey species in this room. But she was not running. She was smiling. And in that smile, Zorvan saw something he had never expected to see. He saw a predator looking back at him. The great hall had become very quiet. High Prelate Zorvan towered over the table like a mountain of scales and muscle. His claws had extended fully. They gleamed under the crystal lights. His 4 eyes burned with rage and confusion. Commander Lydia Okonkwo stood before him. She barely reached his chest. Her hands hung loose at her sides. Her breathing was slow and even. Every delegate in the room understood what they were seeing. This was a challenge. This was a moment that could not be taken back. Zorvan moved forward. His footsteps cracked the polished floor. You think you frighten me, human? You think your little death world makes you special? He spread his arms wide. His muscles flexed under his scales. I have killed creatures larger than you, faster than you, stronger than you. Your species is nothing. Maybe, Lydia said. She did not step back. But we're still here. And something tells me you've never actually fought a human before. I will enjoy teaching you fear. Will you? Lydia tilted her head slightly. Let me tell you something about my people, High Prelate. Something your intelligence reports probably left out. She began to walk. Not toward Zorvan. Not away from him. She walked slowly along the edge of the table. Her eyes never left his face. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. Everything on Earth is dangerous. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the water can kill you if you drink from the wrong place. Her voice was steady, almost conversational. We should have died out millions of years ago. But we didn't. You know why? Zorvan did not answer. He watched her move with those 4 yellow eyes. Because we refused to give up, Lydia continued. We got hurt, and we healed. We got scared, and we kept fighting anyway. We got knocked down again and again, and every time, we got back up. She stopped walking. Do you know what persistence hunting is? Silence. It's how our ancestors got food. They would pick an animal and start chasing it. Not fast, just steady. The animal would run away. It would escape. It would think it was safe. Lydia smiled again. But then we would appear again. And again. And again. We would chase that animal for hours. For days sometimes. Until it collapsed from exhaustion. Until its heart gave out from fear and stress. She took 1 step toward Zorvan. We don't stop, she said. Ever. Once we decide something matters, we will pursue it until we win or until we die. And even then, our children will keep pursuing it. Our grandchildren. Our great-grandchildren. We hold grudges for generations. We remember every insult, every betrayal, every wrong. Another step. Zorvan moved back. He did not seem to realize he was doing it. His body acted on instinct. Something deep in his predator brain was screaming at him. This creature was wrong. This creature was dangerous. So here's my question, Lydia said. Do you really want to make an enemy of my species? Because right now, we're neutral. We're just observers. We have no stake in your conflicts. She gestured at the Volcari delegation. But I like them. They've been kind to us. They've shared their knowledge and their culture freely. They've treated us like friends. Ambassador Valthani's fronds had risen slightly. She watched the human with something like wonder. And humans, Lydia said softly, are very loyal to their friends. Zorvan found his voice. It came out rougher than before. You threaten the Dominion? 1 female against an empire? I'm not threatening anyone. Lydia raised her hands. Empty. Open. I'm just standing here. That's all. But I want you to think about something. Right now, there are 30 billion humans on Earth. 30 billion people who grew up on a world that tried to kill them every day. 30 billion persistence hunters who never give up. She lowered her hands, and right now, they're watching this broadcast. Zorvan's eyes widened. His head turned toward the recording devices mounted around the hall. Small lights blinked on each one. The negotiations were being transmitted to every member world. Every species with an interest in the Accords, including Earth. My government didn't send me here to make enemies, Lydia continued. They sent me to watch and learn, to see how galactic politics work. But I guarantee you, High Prelate, if you threaten our friends, if you hurt the people who showed us kindness, 30 billion humans will learn a very important lesson today. She leaned forward slightly. Her voice dropped to something just above a whisper. They'll learn who to chase. Zorvan stood frozen. His claws had retracted without his knowledge. His scales had gone pale. For the first time in his life, he faced something that did not back down. Something that did not submit. Something that looked at him like he was prey. The silence-stretched thought Ambassador Kethviren stepped forward carefully. His wings trembled, but his voice stayed calm. Perhaps we should take a brief recess. Emotions are running high. We all need time to know. Lydia held up one hand. No recess. We finish this now. She looked at Zorvan. The High Prelate was about to apologize to Ambassador Valthani. Weren't you? Zorvan's jaw worked. Muscles moved under his scales. His whole body seemed to vibrate with trapped fury, but he did not attack. He did not threaten. He looked at this human, this small creature from a death world, and he saw the truth she had spoken. Humans did not stop. If he killed her here, her people would come. If he won that battle, they would come again, and again, and again, until one side was destroyed completely. And looking into those steady brown eyes, Zorvan was not sure which side would break first. "This negotiation is over," he said. His voice was cold and hard. "The Ithrak Dominion withdraws from the Hegemony Accords." He turned and walked toward the door. His delegation followed quickly. Their footsteps echoed through the silent hall. At the door, Zorvan stopped. He looked back at Lydia. "This is not finished, human." "No," Lydia agreed. "It's not. But next time, maybe think before you call someone prey. You might be surprised what they're capable of." Zorvan left. The door closed behind him with a heavy sound. Lydia let out a long breath. Her shoulders relaxed. For just a moment, she looked tired. Then she straightened and turned to face the rest of the delegates. "I apologize for the disruption," she said. "I know I was out of line. I know I had no right to speak." Ambassador Velthani rose from her seat. Her front stood tall and proud. She walked around the table until she stood before the human woman. "You defended us," Velthani said. Her voice held quiet amazement. "No one has ever defended us before." Lydia smiled. A real smile this time, without the predator's edge. "That's what friends do." Velthani reached out with one delicate hand. She touched Lydia's shoulder gently. "Then we are friends. Now and always." Around the hall, something began to change. The Christarim representative moved out from behind its pillar. The Morvith delegates started clicking rapidly among themselves. The Pale Syndicate ambassador looked at the humans with new interest. The old order had cracked. Something new was growing in its place. And Ambassador Kethverine watched it all with a mixture of horror and fascination. 3 years of careful work, destroyed in moments. But also, something else. Something that had never been possible before. Hope. Strange and unexpected hope. The hours after the confrontation moved quickly. Commander Lydia Okonkwo sat in a small conference room, away from the Great Hall. Ambassador Kethveran stood across from her. His silver eyes studied her face carefully. His wings opened and closed with nervous energy. "You understand what you have done," he said. It was not a question. Yes. Lydia did not look away from his gaze. "I broke your treaty. The Hegemony Accords took 3 years to negotiate. 3 years of careful work, compromise, balance." Kethverin's voice carried deep frustration. The Ithrak Dominion controlled 47 systems. Their withdrawal means those systems remain contested. It means conflict. It means war. "There was already conflict," Lydia said quietly. "There was already war. It was just quiet, hidden, dressed up in polite words. Polite words keep people alive, do they?" Lydia leaned forward. "Tell me something, Ambassador. If the Accords had been signed, what would have happened to the Valkyrie?" Kethverin hesitated. His wings folded tight against his back. "That's what I thought," Lydia said. "The Accords would have given Zorvan the Amber Nebula. Maybe not today. Maybe not next year. But eventually, because nobody wanted to fight him. Everybody wanted peace." She shook her head slowly. "But peace built on fear isn't peace. It's just delayed surrender. And what you offer is better. Open conflict? I offer choice." Lydia stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. Every species in that room has spent centuries being bullied by the Dominion. Pushed around, threatened, forced to give up things they valued just to avoid violence. She turned back to face him. Today, some of them learned they don't have to accept that. Today, they saw someone stand up and say no. You are one species, one small planet. The Dominion has thousands of warships. We'll build more. Tetviren stared at her. You truly believe you can fight them? I believe we can try. Lydia's voice was calm and certain. And I believe others will try with us. Because today changed something, Ambassador. Today showed the galaxy that the Dominion can be challenged. That they can be pushed back. That they can be made to flinch. A knock came at the door. It opened before anyone could answer. Ambassador Valfani entered the room. Her frond stood tall and moved with purpose. Behind her came the Cristarim representative, floating silently. Behind them came 3 Morvith delegates, clicking softly among themselves. Forgive the interruption, Valfani said. But we could not wait. Kethviren blinked in surprise. Ambassador? What is this? This is a delegation. Valfani looked at Lydia. We have been talking. All of us. The species who were mocked. The species who were threatened. The species who have spent generations living in fear. Her large eyes shone with something fierce. We do not want to live that way anymore. The Cristarim representative pulsed with light. Its translator turned the vibrations into words. The Dominion calls us weak. They call us prey. But together, we are not weak. Together, we are many. One of the Morviths stepped forward. He was small, barely reaching Lydia's waist. His black eyes looked up at her without fear. We watched what you did, he said. We watched you stand alone against a creature twice your size. You did not run. You did not submit. You showed us something we had forgotten was possible. Courage, Valfani said softly. You showed us courage. Lydia looked at these aliens. These strange beings from distant worlds. They had nothing in common with humanity. Different bodies. Different cultures. Different histories. But in this moment, they shared something important. Hope and anger. And the desire to be free. What are you asking for? Lydia said carefully. Alliance. Valfani stepped closer. Formal alliance with the Terran Confederacy. We want to stand with you. We want to learn from you. We want to build something new. She reached out and took Lydia's hand. We want to be your friends. Not just words. Real friendship. The kind you showed us today. Lydia felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She was just a military commander. She had no authority to make treaties. No power to bind her government. But she also knew something important. She knew that moments like this did not come often. She knew that history sometimes turned on small decisions made by ordinary people. I can't promise anything official, she said slowly. I'm not a diplomat. I don't have the authority to sign treaties. We know, Valfani said. We are not asking for treaties. Not yet. We are asking if humanity wants to walk this road with us. As partners. As equals. Lydia looked at each alien in turn. The gentle Velkari. The crystalline Cristarim. The small but brave Morvith. Each one had taken an enormous risk just by coming to this room. She smiled. Yes, she said. Humanity walks with you. The days that followed transformed neutral station arenas into something new. The failed peace summit became the birthplace of a different kind of alliance. Other species came forward. The Pale Syndicate sent a private message expressing interest in closer ties with the Terrans. The Thornwood Collective requested a meeting. The deep swimmers of Krath emerged from their liquid chambers to discuss mutual defense. Ambassador. Kethviren watched it all happen with growing amazement. This was never supposed to happen, he told Lydia one evening. These species have never worked together. They have too many differences. Too many old conflicts. Fear is a good motivator, Lydia said. But hope is better. They're not coming together because they're scared. They're coming together because they believe things can change. Can they? Lydia looked out at the gathered ships. Valkyrie transports flew alongside human frigates. Crystrum vessels exchanged data with Morvath scouts. A dozen different species, learning to trust each other. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe we'll fail. Maybe the Dominion is too strong. Maybe we'll all be destroyed. She turned to face him. But at least we'll have tried. At least we'll have stood for something. Cathviren was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, his wings relaxed. Something like respect entered his silver eyes. The illuminated Concord has always avoided conflict, he said. We believe in negotiation. In peaceful solutions. He paused. But perhaps some problems cannot be negotiated away. Perhaps some evils must be confronted. Is that your official position? No. A slight smile crossed his alien features. But it might become one. Give me time. 3 weeks after the confrontation, Commander Lydia Okonkwo left Neutral Station Arenas. Her shuttle carried formal alliance requests from 7 species. It carried communication protocols and trade proposals and military cooperation plans dotted. Also carried something less tangible. A change in how the galaxy saw humanity. No longer strange newcomers from a dangerous world. Now they were something else. Protectors. Allies. Friends. The Ithrak Dominion had sent a message of their own. It promised consequences. It promised punishment for the insult. It promised that humanity would learn to regret standing against them. Lydia read the message once and deleted it. She had more important things to think about. Like how to build a fleet. Like how to train soldiers. Like how to prepare for the war that everyone knew was coming. The war began 14 months later. The Ithrak Dominion attacked without warning. Their fleet emerged from hyperspace above the Valkyrie homeworld at dawn. 3,000 warships. Enough firepower to burn the planet to glass. High. Prelate Zervan led the assault personally. He had spent the past year preparing for this moment. Building ships. Training soldiers. Planning revenge for the humiliation he had suffered at Neutral Station or in his dot. He expected easy victory. He expected the gentle Valkyrie to surrender. He expected their new human allies to be too far away to help. He was wrong on all 3 counts. The first human ships arrived within hours. Admiral Lydia Okonkwo commanded the Allied fleet from the bridge of the carrier TN's Persistence. She had earned her promotion in the months of preparation. She had earned the trust of 12 species who now flew under a united banner. The Battle of Valkyrie Prime lasted 3 days. Zorvan had expected humans to fight like other species, to maintain distance, to avoid losses, to retreat when the numbers turned against them. Humans did not fight that way. They flew directly into the enemy formation. They took damage that would have destroyed other vessels and kept fighting. They ejected from burning ships and continued to battle in emergency suits. They refused to surrender. They refused to retreat. They refused to die quietly. And they were not alone. Crystrum dreadnoughts absorbed enemy fire, their crystal bodies healing almost as fast as they were damaged. Morgoth fighters swarmed through the Dominion fleet in vast numbers, too small and too many to target effectively. Valkyrie ships provided support and coordination. Their peaceful nature transformed into careful strategy. The Dominion had expected prey. They found predators. By the end of the 3rd day, half of Zorvan's fleet was destroyed. The other half was surrounded. The High Prelate's flagship drifted powerless in space, its engines destroyed by a human boarding team. Admiral Okonkwo stood on that bridge. She looked down at Zorvan, defeated and chained. I told you, she said quietly. We don't stop. The war continued for 2 more years. It spread across dozens of systems. Millions died on both sides. Cities burned. Worlds fell. The galaxy watched in horror as the conflict grew beyond anything they had imagined. But something else happened too. Something the Dominion never expected. Other species joined the alliance. Species who had been neutral saw the humans fighting for their friends. They saw them sacrifice ships and soldiers to protect planets that were not their own. They saw courage and loyalty that had been rare in galactic politics. One by one, they made their choice. The Illuminated Concord broke centuries of neutrality to provide supplies and medical support. The gas giants of Nebula 12 offered fuel and repair stations. Even the mysterious deep thinkers, who had not spoken to other species in 1,000 years, sent a single message of support. The war ended at the Battle of Zorvan's Reach. The Dominion had gathered everything they had left. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon. They made their final stand in the system that bore the High Prelate's name. They believed this would be their moment of victory. Admiral Okonkwo brought the Allied fleet to meet them. The battle was the largest in galactic history. Thousands of ships on each side. Weapons fire lit up space like a second sun. The fighting lasted 18 hours without pause. The Dominion broke first. They had never learned how to face an enemy that would not give up. They had never understood what it meant to fight someone who would rather die than surrender. When their lines finally shattered, when their commanders finally fled, they left behind the wreckage of an empire. Zorvan died in the battle. His ship was destroyed by a direct hit from the TN's persistence. Some said it was intentional. Some said it was fate. Admiral Okonkwo never commented. The Treaty of New Beginning was signed. 6 months later. It was not like the Hegemony Accords. It did not try to maintain old orders or protect old powers. It was something entirely different. A document written by species who had fought together, who had bled together, who had earned each other's trust through sacrifice. The treaty established the Galactic Alliance, a true partnership of equals. Every member species had an equal voice. Every world had the same rights. Every citizen was protected by the same laws. Ambassador Valfani signed for her people with trembling fronds. Not fear this time. Joy. Ambassador Kethviren signed for the Illuminated Concord. His wings spread wide in the gesture of welcome he had used years ago. But now it meant something real. Admiral Lydia Okonkwo signed for the Terran Confederacy. Her signature was simple and practical. Just like her. After the ceremony, she stood alone at a viewport. She watched ships from a dozen species moving in formation. Crystrim and Morvith and Velkari and human. Together. Free. Valthani joined her quietly. What are you thinking about? The cost. Lydia's voice was soft. So many dead. So many worlds damaged. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. Back at the station. When I stood up, you are having doubts? No. Lydia shook her head slowly. Not about the choice itself. Just about whether there was another way. A path with less pain. Valthani's fronds moved gently. There was no other way. I have thought about this many times. If you had stayed silent, the Accords would have been signed. The Dominion would have taken the Amber Nebula. Then the next system. Then the next. My people would have survived, perhaps. But we would not have been free. She reached out and touched Lydia's arm. You gave us something more valuable than safety. You gave us ourselves. You showed us that we did not have to accept being prey, that we could choose to be something else. A voice dropped to a whisper. That is worth any price. Lydia looked at her friend. This gentle alien from a peaceful world. She had changed so much in the past years. They all had. What happens now? She asked. Now we build. Valthani's fronds rose with hope. We build something that has never existed before. A galaxy where strength does not mean cruelty, where power does not mean domination, where species help each other instead of hurting each other. That's a big dream. Humans taught us to dream big. Valfani smiled. It was a gesture she had learned from her human friends. You showed us that impossible things can be achieved if you refuse to give up. Lydia laughed. It was a warm sound. A tired sound. The sound of someone who had carried a heavy weight for a long time and could finally set it down. Well, she said, I guess we better get started then. She turned from the viewport and walked back toward the light and the noise and the future dot in the archives of what had once been neutral station arenas. Historians preserved a holographic recording. It showed a moment from years ago. A moment when everything changed. A human woman, standing up from her chair, smiling at a predator, refusing to be afraid. The recording was watched billions of times in the years that followed. It was studied in schools and military academies. It was discussed by philosophers and politicians. Everyone had an opinion about what it meant, but for the species of the Galactic Alliance, the meaning was simple. Sometimes. The bravest thing you can do is stand up. Sometimes. That is enough to change the universe.